Present this hat to Lieutenant Colonel McConnell because we share the same love and passion for a wonderful aircraft. Regardless that it was created for war, it's amazing aircraft. And in honor of that and your years of service in flying this aircraft, I'd like to present you with this.
Okay, I'm no longer a cheesehead. This is a Phantom hat, and he didn't know how big my head was. We'll adjust it later. This airplane, if you don't believe in God, by the way, if you don't believe in God, I don't know why you're listening. But having said that, if you want to believe in God, McDonnell Douglas, specifically McDonnell in St. Louis, built 5,200 F4s. Now, there were more built in Japan, but of the 5,200 F4s, 2 were used by British Aerospace, BAE, one from Fargo, North Dakota Air National Guard, where I flew this aircraft, and one from Fresno, California Air National Guard, where I went out and had a lot of fun at some point when they converted from F-106s to F-4s. Now they have F-16s. Anyway, what are the odds that this 1 out of 5,200 F4s is down in Canton, Texas? If anybody wants to Google, and I'm not egotistical, this is just showing you the power of God. If you Google Field McConnell's jet, this picture comes up of this aircraft, which is 640965. Now, my wife, Denise, was born on the 5th of September of 65, and all those numbers are on the registration of this aircraft. But this aircraft was used corruptly and evilly by British Aerospace and Trade Corps. See, they try to have multiple corporations so nobody knows who is who. No. British Aerospace and Trade Corps used this airplane that I used to fly, and it's currently on display in Canton, Texas, to practice evil in the privatization of war. They put droning, it costs between $300,000 and $800,000 depending on the recipient aircraft. But this aircraft got droned, so it didn't need a pilot, didn't need a backseater, and that what they did, thank you, whoever did that.
Eager Beaver.
Who?
Eager Beaver.
Eager Beaver's in Canada. Would you tell us where you are in Canada, and would you tell us if you're the person that sent the Zimbabwe note? Because I get confused. This aircraft, unfortunately for the bad guys, is playing an extremely high-profile yet comical role in exposing evil because they picked. Yeah, that's good. Or you're going to put it on.
I'm going to fix it for you.
Oh, he's fixing it for me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and in England, of course, everyone knows that Jim will fix it, and that means Jimmy Savile. Now, somebody on a radio show, John B. Wells, Saturday night, said Jimmy Savile. No offense, John B. I'll love you and I'll see you in November. It's Jimmy Savile, and Jimmy Savile was sort of like the guru of pedophilia in the United Kingdom, where the United Kingdom royals and the parliamentarians thought that as long as they all cooperated with the pedophiles, life would go on and they'd have so much money they could never spend it. Well, you can't spend money in heaven or in hell, so the money's no good. So for the monarchs and for the parliamentarians, and as well as our Congress and Senate, if you're a pedophile, you're not going to like this airplane. Thank you very much for giving me this cap.
You're welcome.
And this airplane can be found. I mean, God could have had any airplane go to Texas, but well, I was going to say mine, but I'll say ours, because Pastor Mark and Brandy back here, Agent Brandy, and all of us at Abel Danger are going to have a ranch in Texas, and we're going to start taking reservations for baptisms on the 24th of August. So if you know me pretty well, like if you're Telford Russian or someone like that, then feel free to contact me before the 24th of August. But for anybody that I've never communicated with before, if it comes in before the 24th of August, I probably will not see it, because between now and the 24th of August, somebody's going to take over admin duties for me, and that somebody may well be a combination of Denise, my wife, and Marcy Martin, who is going to be offered a job at $120,000 plus as soon as certain events fall into place. And I want to say one thing right now to people that don't anticipate this is coming. To Woodworker Dan and the driver of the 66 Imperial convertible, you know, you guys were the most valuable players a Plum Plunge 2018. And at some point during this live radio show, somebody's going to send me a picture of Agent, this is wonderful. Wait, watch this. You can't believe it. The lady that was driving the 66 Chrysler Imperial, for whatever reason, may be known from here and forevermore as Agent 71. And would somebody in the chat room please put up the picture of the U.S. Naval Academy football human mascot? It's a human dressed as a goat, and the number 71 is on that mascot's football shirt. Okay, let's see if David's here, and if he is, we'll go get him. And if he's not, we'll press on without him.
And Eager Beaver said that he lives on Vancouver Island and it wasn't him that sent to Zimbabwe.
Oh, okay, but nobody's heard from David Hawkins. Okay. Well, we'll just blow David off until
He's in the chat room.
He is in the chat room?
Yes.
He's got it posted.
Okay, but has he got his Skype on? Oh, wait a minute. Somebody just posted something. I need a lot of help. Bravo Tango, who's a female with an interesting Anglo name, even though she's not 100% or her husband is not 100% Anglo. And I don't care. I'm just showing I've got a memory. Some memories just won't die. Some feelings won't give in. Oh, no matter how hard we try. That was the last popular song by a country western singer that liked to race Chrysler-powered stock cars. Okay, Abel Danger, who am I talking about? The name of the song is Some Memories Just Won't Die. And the year is 1983. And so David Hawkins should probably call me if he wants to speak on this radio show. My Skype's on. In fact, I got witnesses right here. And yep, David Hawkins is still not on. So once again, no problem. If he can't get on Skype, we can press on without him. I see David is publishing something. It says, early investigative reports regarding the disaster of Malaysia Flight 17 reveal that it was likely destroyed, no it wasn't, by a surface-to-air missile, which had a proximity fuse. Now this is all BS. How does a proximity fuse detonation system work? What does it impact? Okay, I can explain two things. How the prox fuse works, which I've already done several times. And I can also explain that people like Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and their fat-lipped daughter, whose name off the top of my head is Chelsea Hubble. Are we in concert?
Yes.
Chelsea.
Camera?
Tilt your camera down a little bit.
Okay, that's what Denise told me, and I wasn't ignoring her. It's just that, how does it look now?
I'll know in a second. It'll take a few seconds to catch up.
Okay, well, I can check it too, right here. I have that technology. I think it looks better.
Yep, I'm going to know in a second.
Anyway, whoever it was that told me something, okay, guess who just showed up? Aunt Blabby.
Hi, Aunt Blabby.
One ringy-dingy, 317,1969.168 divided by the square root of Foxtrot Alpha ringy-dingies.
Hello, Phil.
Okay, I'm checking my volume, and meaning your volume, and I'm going to say hello, hello. I don't know why you say goodbye, hello, for a test. And then, David, I want you to say hello, hello. I don't know why you say goodbye, I say hello, and then we'll know how our volume is. Okay, go ahead, David.
Okay, hello, hello. I don't know why you say hello. Goodbye.
Okay, how's the volume out there?
Well, I can hear you.
No, I'm not asking you, David. You got what you need to do is practice your listening skills. I'm asking the chat room. How is the volume out there between David and I? Please, chat room. And watch out real quickly now. Someone in New Jersey, someone in Canada, and okay, I got Canada right. He's first, DJM. In fact, with DJM in mind, I just got 5x4 in England. David, do you know where North Yorkshire, United Kingdom is?
Yeah, it's north of South Yorkshire.
Okay, good. And then Telford Russian said both are 5x5. Stella, who must be new, said sounds great. Jameskin, who is in Denver and has been abused by the Department of Justice, like most of us. Eager Beaver in Canada says both sides. VP, he says he's in East Sussex. I don't know what that means. He's really in, don't tell me, I know. He's in, I think it's East Point. It's 2 towns east of Brighton, United Kingdom, is where it's next to Seaford or Seacrest. But for the guy in Canada, David, do you think God could possibly get me a Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe note that has Abel Danger on it?
I believe God can do anything.
Well, you're right. With God, all things are possible. And there also Romans 8:31, if God's for you, who can be against you? Someone who believes in us, in Abel Danger, that is, and I'm sure he believes in God or he wouldn't be here. Somebody sent me this very nice Reserve Bank note. I'm going to push it up real close, and I'm going to put my left index finger and fingernail on the, I'm going to try to hold it still, but I'm so excited, you know, my hands move a lot. Go ahead, there it is. And the number on the note, I hope Gobsmack is here. Oh, Gobsmack is here. What's this? Do you guys here in the chat room, here in my office, did you hear me say somebody will put up a picture of Agent 71?
There it is.
There it is.
Yep.
The reason why the Naval Academy mascot is numbered 71 is because I gave them 5 mascot goats, and they said, well, what can we pay you for those goats? And I said, nothing, it's a gift. And that's the payment right there. Now and forevermore, number 71, which is my college class, who cares? That's why that number's there. So David, I put up I'm going to read it and then turn it over to you. The Zimbabwe note that was sent to me by a Canadian or two. The note number is Alpha Delta Abel Danger 0410154, and it has been rumored that the value of this Zimbabwe note is somewhere between, I'm not making either of these numbers up, is somewhere, yeah I am, I'm forgetting the big number, somewhere between 16 cents and $125,000, and I don't care, and Mark and Brandy don't care, Agent Brandy, excuse me. We don't really care what it's worth because it's going to be framed and it's going to be displayed at the, and I don't like saying the name of the ranch, but I didn't name it, the McConnell Veterans Ranch in Texas. Over to you, David.
Yeah, thanks, Field. And I was interested to hear your mention of British aerospace.
Yeah, those, I was going to say something rather rude. So let me shift gears and say something nice. When I was in North Wales with Denise in May, Agent Sierra Mike and her husband, whose name is Brad, they gave me this very nice, I guess, would this be orange juice or would this be carrot juice? Do you know, Mark?
I would say orange juice.
Yeah, this is an orange juice container, 16 ounces, and it says Abel Danger Exposing Evil. Now, David, I know how you're looking at numbers. The day you predicted we'd hit 50,000, we hit 59,000 that day. Have you looked at any numbers since then?
Yeah, it's still very satisfactory, but it's I think it was 30,000 the other day, and I don't know what it is today.
Somebody in the chat room will go to abeldanger.org and see what the count was for yesterday. Not today, because today is not done for a while. Okay, so I'm up to date. Vanishing Point said Brighton, New Haven, Seaford, Eastbourne. There it is. He's from Eastbourne, and I said East Point. So, oh, and then this is hilarious. The last town was Dungeness, like Dungeness crabs. I think, aren't there crabs named Dungeness crabs?
Yeah.
Dungeness.
Dungeness, and
Dungeness.
where I live is the capital.
Okay, yeah, the capital of Dungeness crabs is where he lives. So if
North Oregon coast.
what's this? If anybody wants crabs, you can get a hold of Pastor Mark. So anyway, over to you, David. Why don't you speak and I'll be quiet.
Okay, so what intrigues me, Field, is hearing you mention of British aerospace and going backwards with our hours and hours of discussion of the Boeing Honeywell uninterruptible autopilot. And what is it? You showed someone a 60-page inventory of all the patents associated with Boeing. Is that probably you and I are uniquely qualified to track down the bad guys through a simple comparison of patents filed at the Patent Office in the United Kingdom and the United States, and the signature at the crime scene of the perpetrators. And we've been able, I think, to find a perfect match, which I'd like to explore deeper with these 3-act plays or movies. But in particular, just out of reference to British aerospace, I don't know if you know when the proximity fuse was invented or how it threaded its way into the weapons platform which attacked MH17, or appears to have attacked MH17. But we're actually going back to what is called the Tizard mission of 1940, where Henry Tizard was the chief scientist for the British, and he was tasked apparently by Victor Rothschild to transfer all of the top secret military devices developed at the early stages of World War II by the British to the Americans. And he met with a bunch of senior military people and industrialists in Washington. And there was a British spy in the vicinity by the name of Cynthia. And what I believe Cynthia was doing, she was on the payroll of NM Rothschild, or Victor Rothschild, and she was responsible for making sure that the trade in inventions and production revenues was fairly shared between the British and the Americans. So if you look at the proximity fuse that had actually been temporarily stolen by Victor Rothschild from the laboratory at Birmingham University where it was developed and taken away for about 4 or 5 days, and then returned with a note to the scientist responsible for that development, which said, be more careful of your security. And my research indicates that what Victor Rothschild did is he copied the technology of the proximity fuse, amongst other things, and shared it with the Imperial Japanese Navy through an aristocrat, a Scottish aristocrat by the name of Lord Arthur Sempill. Anyway, the Tizard mission took some really interesting technologies and prototypes to Washington, part of that mission, including the proximity fuse and the cavity magnetron. And it turns out that the cavity magnetron production and the proximity fuse production was handed off with enormous profits to a company called RCA, Radio Corporation of America, which had a subsidiary in the UK called RCAGB 1929 that would later change its name to Serco. And RCA back in the 1920s was described as a radio patent monopoly company. And I believe Serco has inherited that role, and it's a patent monopoly company of a lot of things, but in particular wireless and radio communications. And what happened, I think, was a very interesting sleight of hand done with the agreement of traitors within the United States and traitors within the United Kingdom. That is to say, the Americans were given access to the proximity fuse and the cavity magnetron that played a fundamental role in the victory in the Battle of the Atlantic and the ultimate victory in World War II. But they were denied access or withhold access from a very important piece of technology used by the Japanese in the surprise attack at Pearl Harbor. And that's the attack or the technology of identification of friend or foe. Back in the 1940s, a company, a British electronics company called Ferranti, had developed a black box, if you will, to go in aircraft flown by the Royal Air Force, so that the home chain radar systems could identify friendly aircraft coming back from a bombing raid in Europe or over France, and distinguish between those planes and Luftwaffe planes that needed to be shot out of the skies, let's say, with the proximity fuse. So at the time of Pearl Harbor, what appears to have happened is the Americans were equipped with some of the British technologies, but not with identification of friend or foe. So they had some old-fashioned oscilloscope triggering devices, and I believe, maybe someone could check, a 19-year-old naval ensign or something was in charge of giving a warning to the chain of command in the United States to respond to what was a huge swarm of Japanese torpedo bombers. So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be interesting if the British and American traitors played the same kind of game on 9/11 as they did apparently at Pearl Harbor? So I went back into the story of Captain Gerald DeConto in the Pentagon's US Navy Command Center on the morning of 9/11, who noticed that the weapons platform heading his way, that would ultimately hit him between the ears or the eyes and kill 125 of expert staff in the Pentagon's US Navy Command Center, was transmitting the friend signal. And this had disabled or jammed the missiles on the roof of the Pentagon, which were unable or failed to launch to protect the Pentagon. So Captain Gerald DeConto got on the phone, I believe, to a traitor by the name of Gordon England, who was the Secretary of the Navy at the time, and asked for his permission, and I don't know the precise technology, to override the algorithms, if you will, that were preventing the missiles from launching. And it is alleged, apparently, that Gordon England stalled Captain Gerald DeConto until whatever it was that hit the Pentagon, and it certainly wasn't a Boeing passenger jet, was able to eliminate the Pentagon's US Navy Command Center. And that would have been, and I'm not a military guy, but I know enough about military history, that would have been a huge strategic target, way above the wildest ambition of a long-bearded streak-o'-nothing straddling a yak in a cave in Afghanistan. That was a strategic target aiming at knocking out the Pentagon's US Navy Command Center, and it was actually very successful. What Americans have failed to ask is, what happened to the facilities of the Pentagon's US Navy Command Center after 125 of its expert staff were obliterated, possibly vaporized, by whatever it was inside the Pentagon's US Navy Command Center? Well, we know what happens now.
Oh.
It went up in the air. So go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just, I'm amazed at what's happening in real time.
But in real time, above the Pentagon, there was a system related to the AWACS, Airborne Warning and Command System, that had been patented by Southwest Institution of Research in Texas, called the Training System for AWACS Weapons Directors. And unbelievably, Phil, this was a facility that would allow the said weapons directors, presumably acting under the orders of the traitors in the United States, to switch from a simulation training exercise, as in Global Guardian, to a live fire attack. And this would have been synchronized with the dead pool established on the 47th floor of the North Tower, hosted by Wilbur Ross, the protege of Victor Rothschild, for Serco's betting community, which would include the governments of Saudi Arabia and Britain and Singapore. So I think this is really intriguing, because you and I, probably better than anyone, and I'm not saying it's really, really difficult, but once you've done it a few times, I think you and I have the practice at it. You are very good at tracking patented devices that control airborne weapons. And I'm very good at tracking patented devices that control the deployment of prisoners and parolees. Thanks be to God, because you are the brother of your sister, and I call her Con Air Marcy, because in 1985, she bought a Boeing 727, and I have been calling it a 726, but you corrected me the other day.
Only because you were wrong.
Of course. To err is human and to forgive divine, Phil.
I'm human.
Yes, and so am I.
Yeah,
Oh,
what the
carrying
point
on.
was, I'm not divine. So if you want to get forgiven, don't talk to me, talk to God. Over to you.
All right, I will. And so your sister, Kristine Con Air Marcy, bought a Boeing 727 with money stolen from the Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund, which she created with Eric Holder in 1984. And that relatively large aircraft joined a fleet of smaller aircraft, which yesterday or the day before I discovered were small planes that were confiscated from the drug trade. And my guess is that those small planes, many of them carried equipment that would allow the criminals engaged in the drug trade, people like, I don't know, Bill Clinton, to avoid interception by Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, or the DEA, or I don't know, the Bureau of Prisons, or whoever else has got it, or the FBI. And then I'm thinking, well, why are all these government agencies got their head up their arse collectively? And I'm thinking, well, what about the organization created by your sister in 1994 called DOJ Pride, which represents the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender interests and communities in the FBI, the Bureau of Prisons, and the United States Marshal Service? What happens if a number of those people in those communities had been entrapped and blackmailed in a situation of what some people might describe as sexually deviant, or even worse, they got trapped in a situation involving the abuse of children? Such was apparently the case in the organization created up in British Columbia called Piggy Palace Good Time Society and Starnet Communications, which developed a network for Deadpool, child pornography and money laundering, and that was confiscated and taken down to the United States, and we'll come to that where it went, in August of 1999. There was a 100-person raid by law enforcement officers on Starnet Communications at 425 Carroll Street. They took away everything. After that, there was nothing left there, and it went somewhere. 2 SWAT teams came from south of the border, I'm sure entering the Canada, without the authority of the Canadian government. They were 2 covert SWAT teams, one deployed by customs.
Are you dying? Are you dying, David? Or are you okay?
I'm okay, I can manage.
Okay.
By customs and the IRS, and taken south of the border. Now we're free whenever evidence is taken away from a crime scene, which is technically known as an aggressive act of guilt. So I'm making the allegation that the IRS team that took away those systems for Deadpool, child pornography, and snuff film and money laundering took them to building number 7 in New York on the 25th floor, where there was an office shared by the IRS, CIA, and the Department of Defense, all of whom would have had access to the patents or patented devices used on, well, let's say 911, the bombing of the USS Cole in Aden Harbor, the East African embassy bombings, probably the Murrah Building bomb. Because the Murrah Building bomb is very interesting. There was a bomb underneath the childcare center, and a whole bunch of children, I think there were 19 killed. There's an amazing picture of a firefighter carrying the limp and obviously severely damaged body of a baby that did survive. But those, at the top floors, I believe, of the Murrah Building were offices of the United States Marshal Service, FBI, Bureau of Prisons, all of the people represented by the DOJ Pride LGBT community. So I'm wondering, I wonder if the legit guys were in the Murrah Building and the illegit guys were in the Department of Justice Pride organization in Washington, and the legit guys in the Murrah Federal Building were beginning to suspect that your sister was using Oklahoma City as the hub of her Con Air SWAT teams that could be deployed anywhere in the world before a crime scene occurs. And then I think the technical term is exfiltrated from the crime scene and put back in the prison with a nearly perfect alibi. And of course, what your sister would be very concerned about is if these people became whistleblowers and exposed this disgusting network for which she is fully responsible. So she killed a whole bunch of people in the Murrah building, and in particular 19 children, because that evidently turns her crank.
She doesn't have a crank. She wishes she did.
Right. Anyway, moving on, back to your skills and my skills, or your experience and my experience, between your ability to track, how shall I put it, decoy and drone maneuvers in the air through to the patent office, and my ability to track, how shall I put it, friend or foe maneuvers on the ground with the prisoners or parolees through the patent office, we represent the greatest threat to the bad guys that they've ever experienced.
Let me correct you.
Go ahead.
Perhaps the second best, but God is the best by a wide margin. But continue.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm quite happy to believe that God is helping me write the script and helping you develop your particular line of inquiry. After all, we don't compete with God, right?
Well, anybody who competes with God is a fool. And if you want to read where it's written about fools, it's written in Proverbs 1:7. But keep going, Professor.
Okay. So, first paragraph, today's post. Please accept brief 319 from Field McConnell, United States Marine Corps whistleblower and Global Operations Director of Abel Danger, where he describes our proposal to use 3-act plays or movies to help actors and audiences. In brackets after audiences, I put we the people, because people in the audience can be anyone, poor, rich, black, white, lesbian, gay, homosexual, pedophile, or whatever. They're basically anyone in the audience can be any member of we the people. The actors are going to face a lot of challenges because they're going to have to play people, not just because they've got an extraordinary role to play, but a number of those people will have been treated with mind-controlled drugs developed originally under the MK Ultra program at the Royal Victoria Hospital in Montreal by a Dr. Ewan Cameron, who continued the development right through to the end of the 60s. And then he appears to have handed it off to a selected individual who would one day be able to administer or continue that research program with prisoners incarcerated in the jail system in the United States, i.e. your sister. So I believe your sister became an expert in manipulating the brains of prisoners. After all, they're incredibly vulnerable because you get to tell these prisoners who may be in prison for a relatively minor infraction who their cellmates might be. So you might have a heterosexual young man put in the same jail or a cell as a couple of homosexual pedophiles who are going to do really nasty things to him if he doesn't behave himself. Anyway, your sister has total control of which jails they go to. She crisscrossed the United States in the 1998 period, I think it was, or 1997. In the article in the San Diego Tribune, he says she was looking for beds for her prisoners. Yeah, I bet she was. And she accelerated the privatization of the American prison system to companies like Corrections America, I think. There's another one that I forget the name of. But a significant number of, or proportion of the prison population, and I believe under her bailiwick, together with the lesbian pedophile Janet Reno and Jamie Gorelick, they doubled or tripled the prison population. So by the end of the 1990s, running into 2000 or 2001, they would have had access probably to about 1 million people, not all of them who had been modified with mind-controlled drugs, but potentially a very significant proportion where some of these drugs, like the lysergic acid amide from Eli Lilly, which was patented in 1956, were developed, and this is in the language of the patent, for use in psychotherapy research, particularly because they could be used to elicit rage and hallucinations. Well, that's a funny kind of thing to want to do, isn't it? So, so she's got all these prisoners. She could administer, let's say, a time-lapse pill or subcutaneous device in under their skin, and send them on a plane to go to, let's say, New York, give them some ACE elevator uniforms, and put them in Tower 1 and Tower 2, and put this smacksonic configuration, which is basically an incendiary, inside the elevator shaft, and then wire it up with a pyrotechnic device that had been invented, so that when it came time for shock and awe, they could blow those two buildings up. Actually, more accurately, it wasn't so much explosives that brought them down, it was incendiaries in the elevator shaft. But the incendiaries developed huge, high-pressure, very hot gases, and could actually, you can see it on the shots of the buildings coming down, it's blowing 10-ton girders in a parabolic arc landing 100 meters away. Now, some people may not understand what the effect of that is on cement. All cement or concrete has entrained water in it. When you hit it with a temperature such as 5,800 degrees Fahrenheit, which is characteristic of these incendiary devices, the water that's entrained turns to superheated steam, and it blows the cement into a very, very fine powder. And that's the stuff that covered Manhattan with a layer of about 6 inches.
Hey, David, could you stop right there with Manhattan and 6 inches of powder?
Sure.
I've got a woman from New York City that's right here right now and knows a lot about. Do you want to make a statement about? No, she doesn't want to make a statement, but I wonder if she's on the camera. I don't think so. But there's a lady from England, a lady from New York City, a lady from somewhere else, a lady from San Francisco, a dog named Bosley, and Pastor Mark from the McConnell Veterans Ranch.
So a full house.
We got a full house. Go ahead.
Welcome, full house.
Yeah, they're welcomed already. They've been here for 4 days or whatever. So we're all having a good day. Keep going.
All right, so maybe 6 inches of fine white powder that no one peddling the government line can explain, because gravity doesn't do that. Gravity does not fire 10-ton girders in a parabolic arc to embed itself or in a building 150 meters away. The only thing that'll do that is a incendiary device, or basically solid rocket propellant in the elevator shafts, generating the gases at a temperature and pressure enough to blow the top of the building off. And the 1 and 2 were top-down demolitions, and building number 7 was a bottom-up demolition. And it just so happens I'm an expert on explosives. Now, not of demolition, but I've loaded ballistically and electrically an awful lot of explosives in my time. I've taught people how to handle explosives safely. And I have to admit that that was a very professional job, demolishing those towers, and then finishing it off by destroying all the evidence of the command center in New York on the 25th floor of building number 7. Unfortunately, they screwed up the timing of the news release with the demolition, because the BBC announced the building had come down about 20 minutes before it did. And of course, building number 7 was not hit by a plane, but it did have what a lot of people don't know about on the 25th floor, the war room, or the command center for the 9/11 attack, occupied by people from the CIA, the Department of Defense, and the IRS, who had, amongst others, confiscated the network for Deadpool, child pornography, and snuff films from Starnet Communications in Carroll Street in Vancouver. Now, when that building came down, you can see that that was a bottom-up demolition. You can see the spine of the building is broken. The spire on the roof or the penthouse drops into the hole. The building falls into its own footprint. I think it takes about 6 seconds to come down, whereas the big towers took 10 seconds. But all of the internal support has been destroyed or liquidized by the incendiaries. And then, of course, what your sister has at her disposal, I would guess probably 100,000 members of various Con Air SWAT teams to carry out the different functions at these crime scenes necessary to get the public to believe it's some long-bearded twit in a cave in Afghanistan straddling a yak. And those SWAT teams are focused and trained and specializing in the successes: script, spot, shoot, snuff, spin, spoil. The script was written before the attack, and it was actually the script that was embedded in the Global Guardian simulation training exercise. The spot is determining which is the target and what time the target is going to be hit, so that an insider in the death pool can scoop the pot. In the case of the north face of the North Tower, the time that had been selected was 8:46:46. 8th hour, 46 minutes, 46 seconds. That's when the Goldman Sachs servers went off in that building, and the activities of Cantor Fitzgerald, the world's largest broker in sovereign debt, Eurobonds, and US government securities, was transferred in near real time without interruption back to London. And 658 people in the Cantor Fitzgerald offices were murdered. But one guy was out of the office, and his name is Howard Lutnick. He was delivering his child to school, and he happens to be the inventor of a real-time interactive wagering system for event outcomes, which lends itself to death pool operations, because you can take Mr. Lutnick's invention, and before the mayhem starts, when the transponder of American Airlines Flight 11 is switched off, you can start betting on the anticipated body counts in the target and the time of impact. So in this play I've got in mind, I think it's going to be a really shocking event for the audience at the end of scene 3 of Act 1, because that will be set on the 47th floor of the North Tower, and the audience will be able to see the people placing their bets on the time of impact, and they'll be able to look through the window of the North Tower, WTC1, and they'll see a little dot on the horizon. And as the bets are placed, hosted by Wilbur Ross of NM Rothschild, formerly of NM Rothschild, a protege of Victor Rothschild, that dot is going to get bigger and bigger. I don't know that we're going to need a lot of sound effects, but the audience will know that whatever is heading their way, a bit like Gerald de Conto, may be transmitting friendly signals, but it doesn't have friendly intent. And it's going to get bigger and bigger. And I think this is a good way for me to end my monologue, and I hope I haven't bored anyone. It's going to get bigger and bigger.
David, do you know how long you've been talking?
About as long as you often do.
No, that's totally inaccurate. And let me be the wise ass. You're not good at it. You've been talking for about 40 minutes. So go ahead and come up for air once in a while, please.
Okay, all right. The aircraft or weapons platform, as it gets into view, will carry a weapon on a pod that will have a characteristic behavior very similar to the Lockheed Martin hardened penetrator missile. So I'm sorry I've gone on a bit, Field, over to you.
No, that's okay. It's just you do put, I mean, anybody talking 40 minutes or 35 minutes or 30 minutes would tend to put people to sleep. There's a lot you can, I recommend you look at the chat room occasionally, because people are going off into other tangents. First of all, I'm going to turn it right back to you, because I'll be talking with Pastor Mark and these people in the live sitting here in Plum City about how our weekend's gone and what God has been doing for us this weekend. So I see that you just put something in the chat room, but are you ready to go ahead and talk some more? But I recommend you come up for air occasionally so you can see what's going on in the chat room.
I'll be delighted to listen quietly, and if I can answer any questions, I'd be delighted to do that.
Okay, well, it's 2 o'clock, so you mean you'd like to listen quietly to whom at this point?
Whoever wants to talk, I'll just stay in the chat room for 10 to 15 minutes.
No, go ahead. You keep talking, and when you're done, Pastor Mark will come on, and we'll talk about the weekend here in Plum City.
Okay, all right. So just I see GoBanks has put in a picture of the bright flash at the nose of that supposed aircraft that hit the. Looks like the other building is on fire, so maybe that's the south face of the South Tower.
Hang on, David. Did you say supposed aircraft?
Yes.
That's not a supposed aircraft. That is a real aircraft, and it's a Boeing drone. But keep going.
Yeah, but it's probably a video faked.
No, it's not. Drone. No, it's not, David. It's not. That may be a video fake, but the CGI people have been totally debunked by Jason Goodman, and that's his area of expertise. A real Boeing drone hit the building, and that flash is the ignition of a conformally mounted bunker-busting, probably Raytheon-produced piece of ordnance that blew a hole in the building, so when the vaporization via smaxonic of that real Boeing drone, which is an E-10B, built by Boeing and never sold to the Air Force, these people that say there's no airplanes, they're full of shit. The people that say it's CGI, they're full of shit.
Yep.
And it's a Boeing aircraft. The fact there's no pilots in it, we established back in 2006. Over to you.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is it doesn't matter what the weapons platform is. What is of interest is the bunker buster or the hardened penetrator missile, where you can see the image of the nose coming out the other side of the building, right?
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
Of course, that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, if it was CGI, would anything come out of the other side of the building?
Oh, it's not CGI.
Only if they wanted it.
Yeah, I know it's not. Yeah, and the lady from New York City had the proper answer. She said if they wanted it to, and what she probably meant by that, if it was CGI, they could have explosives aimed out of the other side of the building on the reciprocal azimuth of the inbound track of the real Boeing E-10 provided by Darlene Drunion, or Druin, whoever that witch is, who got her son a big cush job, and then she went to jail. Over to you.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about coordinating something as complex as that, and I think I only really discovered that maybe about a month ago, I guess, that there is a patented system. Technically, it's called a training system for AWACS weapons directors that allows you to do courseware or coursework, i.e. training of an individual, switch through to simulation for a training exercise. And of course, I think there were 21 radar injects on 911, right through to live fire. So the question is, who's got custody of the weapons directors on 911? Because there was a training exercise going on, Global Guardian, that was switched to live fire. And at the time of that switch, of course, it would have been very interesting if the AWACS system was linked through to the junket room on the 47th floor of the North Tower, so that Christopher Hyman, when he came down from the Windows in the World restaurant, could say, place your bets. And people would be betting on, or could be betting on, body counts at time of impact. So I went back into the AWACS story, and apparently Boeing made about 70 of these things. As far as I know, they were made up in the production facilities in Washington State. And I looked to see who might have started playing with the technology mounted on those AWACS aircraft, particularly the 18 or so planes that were sold to NATO. And lo and behold, I find that General Alexander Haig, Supreme Allied Commander Europe, he's dead now, in that period of 1978 to 1980s, when your sister had about 10 years in the bureaucracy and was busy starting the senior executive service, then Alexander Haig would have been familiar with the modifications to the AWACS systems that would allow you to switch from training exercise to live fire. So lo and behold, on the morning of 9/11, he's interviewed 14 minutes after impact on the north face of the North Tower, 2 minutes before whatever impacts the south face of the South Tower hits it. And he's asked, well, who do you think is behind it, General Hay? And he says, well, I don't want to speculate. Of course, this prick is going to speculate. He says, well, we know where to look. It's either the Palestinian or bin Laden groups. So there you have the former Supreme Allied Commander in Europe with knowledge of, he must have had knowledge of the ability to switch an AWACS system from simulation to live fire, calling the result of a crime scene investigation before it's even done, and identifying the bin Laden group as a likely candidate, and that was an inject into the global news service so that by the end of the day, the world thought bin Laden had attacked America, and that's bullshit. Over to you, Phil.
Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit being slung. But anyway, let me just go around my group here and see if anybody wants. Oh, I know what I need to do. But Brandy, do you have something for me to do? Yeah, don't feel like you have to say yes. No. Mark, is there anything you and I have to take care of?
A lot of things, but nothing right now.
Okay, well, I'll read that thing you were used. I'm going to read an email to you, David, just to show you how busy I stay while you're talking. And I may not find it on my cell phone, but I think I'm gonna. Yep, I got it. I'm gonna read you this, and I'm not looking down on you or speaking down to you. But this is something that won't make a lot of sense to you, but it will to some of the people like Zigzag and Telford. This came in exactly 40 minutes ago. Dear Field, first of all, thank you for your wonderful work. It's men like you that make this country great. Please know that you and Denise are in my daily prayers. My dad, Robert Q, something that starts with H, was a B-24 pilot. He received his multi-engine wings in February 43, Class 43B at Columbus Army Airfield, Columbus, Mississippi. I'm smiling because I'm getting ideas for the first campfire. Yeah. They were given a choice between the B-17 and the newer B-24. He chose the B-24. His next stop was a B-24 school at Smyrna, Tennessee, Smyrna Airfield. After combat training at Love Field, Dallas, he was selected as a flight instructor on the B-24D model, which is what my dad flew. He trained new pilots at Langley Field, get a load of this, Chatham Field, and Clovis Army Airfield. He ended the air war in Assam Valley, India, now Bangladesh, flying gas and supplies over the hump for General William Tunner. The planes were old and the tanker conversion, C-87, was prone to explode since it was filled with 100-octane gasoline. The point here is I'm interrupting him, but the point is that Claire Chennault's Flying Tigers and the bombers that his father and my father flew, they had to go a long way to get fuel. And they lost 550 aircraft off the top of my head flying the hump during World War II. So any of these candy asses in the NFL that won't stand up for the flag are in my sights right now. It was considered the most dangerous non-combat flying of the war. He made 25 round trips and never boasted or bragged. Question, could my dad, meaning something QH, could my dad have trained your dad? Yeah, he could have, but he didn't, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Thank you for service both in and out of uniform, and the man's name is Jack Hinkle, Hinckle. Nope, your dad didn't train mine, and mine didn't train yours, but they were both in the same class. That's the whole reason I read that. They were both in the same class, 43B, and my dad was trained out in Arizona, and if I was really well rested, I could tell you where, but I'm not that well rested. But oh yeah, I am. Douglas, Telford, can you look up Douglas, Arizona, World War II B-24 and see if anything at all comes up? Meanwhile, David, I'm getting this type of stuff not every single minute, but every single hour. I get something very useful, and it comes from all over the world, from people who think they don't have anything to contribute, but actually everybody has something to contribute. It's just a matter of they're finding their way to us, which is most easily done by emailing me, fieldmcc@yahoo.com, because some people are not comfortable having their emails out there. I got something to talk to you about. And some people don't want to have their pictures out. And but that's why we have all this crap going on in the world. If people would grow some big boy nuts, whether they're males or females, and they'd use their name and they'd show their picture, we'd defeat them faster. But the good news is, and I'm not speaking of God, I'm not speaking for God, but I will tell you that I've told you this for years, David. We can keep doing what we're doing, but the victory is already assured. And that's why I use the date of August 24 for when we're going to start accepting baptism requests from anybody anywhere in the world that wants to come to the McConnell Veterans Ranch and be baptized. Yesterday, and the pictures are there's pictures already in the radio show ad of the first person that got baptized yesterday morning. Oh, crap. Everyone in this building needs to be careful where they walk because it's strewn with a lot of interesting stuff. And David, I'm going to put up a couple of things right now. And I'm going to ask the chat room to guess exactly what this is. Not sort of what this is, but exactly what this is. And then while people in the chat room, and I think Denise will monitor the chat room and tell me when people start guessing and if any of them are accurate. And then I'm going to put up something that just came this morning, as Denise is my witness. 7 minutes before 1 o'clock, when we were supposed to go on, what I'm going to pull out of this bag arrived at the hardware store. And I'm going to hold up 2 examples. There's 12, no, there's more than 12. I told you I was busy. I can't keep track of this crap. Okay, for the people that are watching, it's really funny they came today because I needed them Saturday. I wanted them Saturday. I'll need them when God gets them here, that's when I needed them. Here's for the people watching, this is, anybody can tell me what color this is? I'd say orange.
Yellow.
Goldenrod.
It's goldenrod. Now, you're not going to believe this, but my 1970 454 Corvette was either sunflower yellow or goldenrod, and I'm not sure which it was. Anyway, this is an Abel Danger shirt. Here's a very significant Abel Danger shirt, which reminds me, I'll probably go get the towel in a minute when David's talking. This is a very nice Abel Danger shirt that Craig Peterson designed. I hope people can see it. When I turn it over to David, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to walk out and get the towel. And the towel I'm going to get is 72 inches long. I think someone just went. That's good. Okay, Captain McHale from New York City.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what color is this, young lady?
That is blue.
How big is your husband?
Your size?
My size?
Maybe a little
Small.
Maybe a little smaller.
Well, hang on, David.
He's a large. He prefers a large.
Well, tell me.
I'm gonna zoom in on you.
You're going to zoom in? Oh, yeah.
Am I on screen?
Yeah, sit right on my lap. Go ahead. Everyone's seen you sit on my lap anyway. She's from New York City, and she knows a great deal about 9/11. And unlike some people, she's not afraid to show her face. But I'm not going to say her name. But if anybody in the chat room knows who...
Are you ashamed of me?
No, I'm not, Captain McHale.
Captain McCalley?
Okay. Okay, you say McHale, I say McCalley. Yeah, McCalley is M-I-C-A-L-E. It's Italian. And she has 4 or 5 brothers that all served during combat in the Gulf War series of 2, which were both done by Bush, for Bush, and against the free people of the world. And the people he hurt most in his wars, I'm talking about Bush, were Americans. The targets were Kuwaitis and the Iraqis, and yet the people that he hurt the most, and I'm talking about George H.W. Bush, he hurt more Americans more grievously than anything he did. And in the first war, I want to be corrected, they were advancing so quickly, and a lot of people, somebody in the chat room named David Rusin or Gobsmack, I'm going to tell you something terrible that most of you haven't heard about the first Gulf War. They were advancing from Kuwait into Iraq so fast that they had dug they had dug tunnels. No, they hadn't. The Iraqis had dug the effective fighting holes in the sand, and the U.S. forces were overwhelming them so fast. I'm going to say this real slowly because this is sickening. The Iraqi soldiers were retreating into foxholes, which is a great big trench, and the Americans were advancing so quick they didn't even shoot them. They just covered them with bulldozers alive. So there's your G.H.W. Bush story for the day. And listen, pal, I'm talking to Ironsides. Your ass is grass, you old geezer. Okay, David, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So just the last paragraph of today's post to Kelly. We invite you to check the Marine Corps Intelligence Activity, MCIA, command to ensure it is structured to recognize man-in-the-middle attacks by Serco's digital fires instructors at MC Camp Pendleton. So probably people think I'm a bit obsessed about Serco, but Serco, for whatever reason, was given some lucrative and extraordinarily dangerous outsourcing contracts, primarily, I think, by your sister, including the National Visa Center. Serco got hold of that in 1994. The Defense Ammunition Center, various FAA contract towers, and by no means least the United States Patent and Trademark Office, which means that Serco and its investment banker, N.M. Rothschild, know more about the next weapon configuration that is going to hit the United States than the Marine Corps intelligence activities. So anyway, just a warning, Phil. So I covered a lot of ground. Sorry if I went on a bit earlier, and look forward to the next show.
Okay, hang on a minute. I want you to hear something before you leave. I think, and I'm not sure, but I think Telford Russian was the first guy to get this right. Yes, and some people said it's your latest book. It's called Field of Honor. No, I didn't pick that title. Someone else did. But someone else named David Smith of Miami asked me to write this book, and I wrote it, and he provided a cover. But by the time Denise and I ordered the book, it was 4 months after I wrote the book. No, I'll go back. It was 5 months after I wrote the book. And by that time, my friend David Smith was having some medical problems within his family, and I didn't want to bother him. And so Craig Peterson, who can rip off book covers faster than I can rip off snide comments about George H.W. Bush, John McCain, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Chelsea Hubble, and most of all, Kristine Marcy, who started the SES and has accommodated Serco. David, you didn't look at the last radio show ad, but in the last radio show ad, if I'm not mistaken, and Gobsmack will correct me, or Telford will correct me, but in the last radio show ad, I put up a picture of Trump with, it says, Serco, can you feel me yet? In the background were Nicholas and Rupert Soames. And they can feel us and they can't do anything about us. And when I say that based on the word of God, where it says in Isaiah 54:17, no weapon raised against you can prosper. And for some of you people that don't have a Bible and they don't know, watch this, Mark. For some of you people that don't have a Bible or don't want to believe Isaiah 54:17, I've got a short message for the enemies of God. And here it is. Excuse me, I must have a knot in my eye. Anyway, David, in this book, and first I'm going to establish that David's listening as well as everybody else. David, can you listen for a minute? I want to tell you something that is purely an act of God, and it's in this book. You want to hear it?
Yes, absolutely, Phil.
In chapters 3 or 4, and I will stand corrected by whoever, and nobody in the chat room is going to prove me right or wrong, I don't think, and I don't care if I'm right or wrong. But it's in this book, which was completed about the day of the Super Bowl, and I don't remember what day that was, but I'm guessing February 4th to February 6th. It was a Sunday.
That's about right.
And in this book, which was written in January and early February, and here's the part you need to listen to, David. It is written in this book that Operation Spray Bottle, using a chemical or biological agent like phosgene or like Novichok, would be distributed in the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. And I sent that warning, and I did send it. In fact, I can find it if you remind me. I don't throw emails away. But I sent it to the FBI, and I would have sent it to the FBI in Minneapolis for sure, the FBI in Washington, and I said that Abel Danger has reason to believe that there'll be a chemical biological attack on the Super Bowl after all of the electronic security doors are locked, which means nobody in the building could get out of the building. And the reason why somebody would do something like this is so on the most watched television program of any given year, which is the Super Bowl, people in the United States and North America would be terrified to see that the terrorists can kill us in the tens of thousands. Well, kiss my grits, or for those of you who can handle it, kiss my ass. I sent that warning to the FBI 3 days before the Super Bowl. And David, would you have any idea what happened between my warning them about the chemical attack and the Super Bowl? Do you have any guesses offhand what happened?
No, Matt. I mean, no field, sorry.
The entire security provider for the Super Bowl was shit canned, and they got new security. So somebody somewhere took that threat seriously. Now, David, off the top of your head, can you think of where a spray bottle of Novichok was deployed in the last 3 weeks?
Yeah, in Wiltshire.
Is that Salisbury?
That's the county in which Salisbury, I think that's the major city of Wiltshire.
Okay, so here we have the reason why we got all those hits recently, I think, maybe, it doesn't matter to me. But we're the only people that prognosticated the use of a spray bottle 5 months before the spray bottle was deployed. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, I can't believe it, all 5 of us are going to be in Dallas in November, right? That's the thought. We may not all make it. Yeah, I know you. Yeah, we've all made reservations. In fact, at least one of us is speaking at something called Operation Classified. And would somebody in the chat room find the image of the speakers at Operation Classified at Caravan to Midnight? And David, when it comes up in the chat room, I'll let you know. But in the upper left-hand corner of the speakers matrix, there's another girls' room over there, if that's what you're looking for. There's Tony Schaefer, who was with Abel Danger, ABLE. He's in the upper left-hand corner, and myself from ABEL Danger is in the upper right-hand corner. And we are both amongst the speakers. And I did a radio show with John B. Wells on Saturday night at 9:30, and some of the people in the room right now are witnesses to that, especially one called Pastor Braveheart. But I told him, I said, just to titillate your listeners and to sell out your conference, I won't tell you everything, but I'll tell you that if you Google Operation Spray Bottle, Superb Owl, not Super Bowl, move the B from one word to the next, Superb Owl 52, Operation Spray Bottle, my name, and Phosgene, Phosgene. I told his audience, if you Google that, you'll find something. And if you Google this, Operation Side, S-I-D-E, CAR, C-A-R, if anybody were to Google Operation Sidecar and United Kingdom and Evil and my name, Field McConnell, and I'll throw in Serco, I think something will come up. If it won't, I'll change it in the chat room, and I'll change it when Pastor Mark is talking. But anyway, for Telford Rush and anybody else who guessed, these are the hardbound books, and we got 50 of them, and I can guarantee everybody 2 things. We are not trying to make money, and these books will be sold out probably before we get to Dallas, and I do not anticipate having a second edition printed. Okay, I've just been corrected. Agent McHale from New York City said we will have a second edition printed, and we'll sell that less expensive than the first. We've got 125 first edition books, 25 are hardbound, and less than 100, I'd say 90 are left, that are paperback, in other words, soft cover. And the original edition are all for sale for $50. That's not my price. That price was given to me by 2 ladies last night. And the price, if anybody pays for a book at that price, what they're getting is they're getting the original edition, and they'll be signed by any Abel Danger agents we can find. but I want everybody to hear it out of my mouth. The book is not worth $50. Not if it's just to read, but it's worth more than $50 if you want to see Operation Spray Bottle, talked about 5 months before the cowards in the United Kingdom who sprayed their own citizens with what they said was a Russian chemical, which it's not. According to my research and yours, David, it's very likely that the Novichok that has injured 3 Brits, it's injured 3, and it's killed 1, but that Novichok probably came from Chicago's Northwest University. Would you agree, or would you question that, David?
Yeah, absolutely failed, and it was probably brought to the United Kingdom by a Con Air SWAT team flying into RAF or MOD Boscombe Down, which is administered by QinetiQ. And QinetiQ has a patent for social engineering protection appliance, which allows them, whoever has custody of these patents, to determine what they deem to be malicious or criminal in terms of communication by internet or through the websites and Twitter. So I think they're desperately trying to bleach the internet of stuff they consider malicious or criminal, but I would consider to be elements of Abel Danger and the franchise of the truth. Over to you, Phil.
I'm holding up, along with Pastor Braveheart, whose name is Mark Runyon, we're holding up the official McConnell Veterans Ranch baptism towel, and we've baptized 3 people, and it's not we that did it, it's Pastor Mark, but there you go. This is the towel that we're taking to Texas, and we hope to dry off hundreds, if not thousands. We're going to have a chapel on the ranch that will do baptisms, marriages, and sadly enough, funerals, or any type of a memorial service. So are you ready to go away, and I'll put Pastor Mark on while I go squeeze my lemon?
Yeah, absolutely, Phil, and bless everyone. And don't squeeze the lemon too hard because they shrink.
Yes.
I only hold the second half of it. Denise always aims it.
Too much information.
Okay, anyway, you can hang up on yourself, and I'll sit here with Pastor Mark, and if I don't wet my pants, Mark will do the entry to our show, and I'll be back to join him in moments, okay?
Okay, bye, everyone. See you Thursday.
Yeah, okay. Bye-bye. See you
David.
Thursday.
Bye, David.
Bye-bye, David.
Everybody's yelling goodbye to you, David. Let's see now. Let's see now. I wish I could figure out. David, you're going to have to hang up. I can't figure it out. And I'll introduce Pastor Mark right now to the camera. I spelled right wrong. I said Tilford Russian, got it right, and I spelled it W-R-I-T-E. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm going to go squeeze my lemon. Do you want, wait a minute, before I go, do you want to open with a prayer or close with a prayer?
I'll let you open.
Okay.
Unless you can't. Because
No, I can. God can control my urethra. In fact, He created it. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this blessed weekend where people from San Francisco, Portland, New York City, Branson, Missouri, Ottawa, Canada, Plum City, and a variety of other places, including Norway, Iowa, which is Agent Jerry the Heater, and you can take that any way you want it. But Jerry D., who just got his new agent name, Jerry the Heater, we had a lot of people come here. Some people, a very modest circumstance, but all of us joined in witnessing what God's going to do for global humanity and the eradication of pedophile, which is the glue that holds the former cabal and the defeated cabal and the UK royals and the Jesuits and the senior executive service, Serco, and the evil people in our own government. I'm talking about the US, not the UK, although theirs are evil too. But in the United States, our Congress and senators and congressmen that are sitting today actively, by my estimation, 70% may be practicing pedophiles, another 25%, for a grand total of 95%. Our government, with very few exceptions, are either pedophiles or pedophile friendly or pedophile tolerant. Those days are over. The Queen of England has been moved out of position by Donald Trump, who would not kneel to her on the 13th, Friday the 13th of July. And of course, God, you and your eminent wisdom and omnipotence, you arranged for Denise to get her visa the very day that the Queen was told of her new status by President Trump, who, just like Vladimir Putin, President Trump and Vladimir Putin and one other nation which is involved in Operation Sidecar, they are not bowing to evil, they are not bowing to the pedophiles, they are not bowing to temptation, and they are going to encourage peace in the world and also a return of faith in the Russian Federation and in the United States of America. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Bill.
Mission.
The glory of God, I want to give a quick testimony. Recently, I gave up my motorcycle riding, a nice V-twin between my legs that was 96 cubic inches, over 1,500 cc's, with straight pipes that was would set off every car alarm, custom cruiser. I departed with that, donated it to a Christian activity that's going to send 2 missionaries to Uganda. And I was blessed to be able to do that. And I get here, and the first thing I find out is I'm going to drive the 1936 detonator Studebaker in the Plum City Plunge Parade. And for those that have access to live stream, you'll see a picture of that car in the radio ad. I'll tell you what, that put some horsepower on 4 wheels underneath me, and that was so much fun. The parade was awesome. Everything that we've experienced here, you can't put in words. It's beyond what you can pick up on the internet, through the live stream. It was amazing. The energy that has been created in this region of the country through what Field and David do is powerful, and it's felt, and people respect it, and they know. And it's the spread going globally is amazing. And so to have the opportunity here, stay at a most wonderful bed and breakfast that Philip and Mary run, my goodness, it was just above and beyond anything that any of us that were here expected. Great street dance on Saturday night. We had fireworks while we were on the John B. Wells show that were amazing. You can see one of the shots that Denise caught on the radio ad. It was spectacular, as well as the baptisms. There were 2, one at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, and another at 10:30. And we're going to take that priest of that Plum City Creek, where we did the baptism. You can see how deep the water was. I'm in the water, and about 3.5 feet. We're going to replicate that at the Veterans Ranch off of one of the lakes, with all the plumbing necessary to run the water over that type of waterfall. But we're going to have a ramp that comes down for wheelchairs and a step with a rail, but we'll still be in the sand at the bottom. And I can't wait to see how many will be blessed through baptism in a similar setting as that was on our ranch one very soon. And with that, it's just been an amazing time. So grateful to be here. What else did we do? That was a lot of fun. Saturday we did something besides the...
Saturday was a street dance, John B. Wells, and then a retreat to there where you guys...
Oh, no. Vino in the Valley. That's what I was forgetting. That was amazing. And we did a wonderful tribute to someone's Marine son-in-law who had some physical difficulties.
His name is Clayton. He had the equivalent of a massive stroke, and he was on life support for a fair amount of time, probably 3 to 4 weeks, and now he can open his eyes and smile.
Yep.
And yet the heartless country we live in has determined that the insurance providers have said he's been in the hospital long enough, so they're going to kick him out of the hospital. But he's very fortunate that his in-laws own a bed and breakfast, which is handicap accessible. So that's where he's going to start his recovery, and he's going to finish his recovery on the Veterans Ranch in Texas if things go the way we anticipate.
Exactly. And as part of the tribute at the Vino of the Valley for Abel Danger, we also included him, and there was a nice little speech and prayer said for him. So that was enjoyable as well. It's just been spectacular. It went fast, but it didn't. I mean, I definitely enjoyed the whole time. And we had a parade in the parade. We had 5 cars lined up. That was a lot of fun.
Okay, and can you remember who drove any of the cars?
Yes.
Go ahead. As far as your memory goes, go ahead and I'll fill in.
I spoke about myself already driving the detonator, and then in the Pat Tillman Studebaker, we had Field's lovely youngest daughter driving. And in the beautiful 37 presidential Studebaker, Bill McConnell and Denise McConnell and others were riding along, and I believe you picked up a hitchhiker.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember who was that.
Me
And
and,
we,
me
it was you and who? It
and,
was a guy.
Jason. Jason and I.
Oh,
and
Jason
Ross.
Goodman of Crowdsource the Truth. He and Agent Brandy from San Francisco. It takes about 12 years and 12 plunges to figure out the fast pace. And if you aren't where you're supposed to be 2 weeks ahead of it, you'll miss it. So they were trying to get back at, I can tell you what time it was. It was 20 to 7 p.m. My phone rang, and it was Agent Brandy and Jason. Hey, we're down at Molly's. Where do we need to be? And I said, that's depending on what you want to do. Oh, we want to ride in the car parade. I said, well, then you're already too late. So just go down to 401 and watch us. And when you see the fire engine go by, right behind the fire engine will be a gray or silver. It's really gray, I think. 37th president. Would somebody in the chat room put up a picture of Vladimir Putin and me, or me, with the 37th Studebaker? And if nobody gets it up, that's all right. I can't see what I just said. And if nobody puts that picture up, I'll put it up, because I'm not passing out assignments. I'm passing out opportunities to share, which brings us to this. The cars in this order, I think. I got stuck driving the 37th president because I had at least 2 volunteers, Mark being one of them, but Mark has some distress in his lower extremities, like from the knees down, and I didn't want him to have to drive a clutch-operated car, so he drove my favorite car, which is the 36 Stud, which is a 1936 Studebaker Dictator with a Chevy 427. It'll burn rubber. Excuse me. It'll burn rubber from here to Chicago, and then it'll hit second gear and burn some more. He was not behind me. The 37. No. The 9.
Tillman.
Was it Katie?
Yes.
Yeah, Katie was driving Tillman's Ghost, which is a 1940 Studebaker with a Chrysler 413. It's dedicated to Pat Tillman, who was assassinated under the orders of someone unknown to me, but I've got a very good guess. But I know who covered it up. So I'm going to take a drink of bicarb water, and then I'm going to mention some West Point graduates. When on the 4th of April of 2000 and, wait a minute, that's not right. It could be the 6th of April of 2004. Somebody in the chat room will correct me. But Pat Tillman, who is an Army Ranger who left a lucrative multi-million-dollar career with the Arizona Cardinals of the NFL, he wanted to push back against the Muslims who attacked us on 9/11, which is unfortunate because it wasn't Muslims. It was my sister, George H.W. Bush, Clinton's party of 3, John McCain, and a bunch of other riffraff. But anyway, he didn't know that. And that's one of our obligations when we get the ranch, is to share the truth with the enlisted forces of every nation, not only our allied nation, the neutral nations, our enemies, because none of these young men and women need to be, in fact, he was injured. He can tell you about it later. It was a combat-related injury, but it wasn't with the exchange of killing devices, although he could have been killed. And if he wants to talk about that, he will. But we had a man named, I call him Woodworker Dan. Notice I didn't say Dan Johnson. I didn't mention Nancy Johnson. I didn't say Dan is 78 years old. And I didn't mention that Nancy, his wife, is 29 years old, because she isn't. Right. But anyway, they told us at breakfast just yesterday that that Dan has 2 passions, and both Dan and his wife have a passion for Christ. But Dan's 2 passions are woodworking and gardening. And then his wife, Nancy, said, well, we'd sure like to come down to your ranch. And I said, you mean to visit? And she said, well, yes, to visit, but we'd also like to, I don't think she said the word minister, but she meant it. And ministry doesn't have to be some pompous 501(c) person in a brick and stick and mortar church that's open for 1 hour on Sunday. The type of ministry we're going to have is based on God's having given us the inspiration, a lot of us, a man in Massachusetts, a man in Michigan, me, Mark, Denise, Agent Brandy, Agent Captain McHale. There's a lot of people who want to, now that we can recognize what's wrong, we want to be servants of God as He gets rid of the evil in this world. And even though a lot of Americans aren't going to believe this, Putin and Trump are playing the media like a rapidly spinning soccer ball. And when Trump received a soccer ball from Putin on Monday, the 16th of July in Helsinki, that was a metaphor for Trump, the ball's in your court. Whatever you want to do, I'm helping. I'm going to go out on a limb, and then we'll find out if it's a weak limb, a dead limb, or a strong limb. I'm going to say that somewhere around September 11th, Putin and Trump are going to be starting drip, drip, drip to expose what really happened on 9/11. What really happened on 9/11 was the U.S. shadow government. Some people call it the deep state, but let's be specific. G.H.W. Bush, my sister, John McCain, Hillary, and a bunch of other rat bastards. They attacked the United States of America, and in contrary to the 9th commandment that says you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, and along with the mainstream media, they all sang like a bunch of magpies saying the Muslims did it. My name's Field McConnell. If anybody ever wants to have a court case in a non-gold fringe flag court and you want to defend the Muslims, I'm your best witness. And if you want to attack the senior executive service, I'm your best witness because my sister started it under the supervision of President Jimmy Carter, who was under the thumb of CIA Director George H.W. Bush. Sorry that I rambled on. Over to you, Mark.
We stopped at Tillman's car in the parade, and then we had Chrysler convertible.
Abel Danger 66 Crown Imperial convertible, driven by Nancy.
By Nancy, who happened to be in the right place at the right time when there was not enough drivers.
And she volunteered.
And she was thrilled. She'd never done that. It was on her bucket list, so she's got that off her bucket list of driving a parade.
And she sent me an email, and I'll cleanse it while you talk. She sent me an email today that said, driving your convertible made me feel like a high school girl. You keep talking, I'll prove it, but I'll take her name off the email.
And of course, behind her in the wonderful metallic plum limousine, we found her husband, Dan, and who also was the right place at the right time. And then I followed it up at the back end with Captain McHale sitting next to me, throwing candy to all the children, going through a nursing home parking lot. It was just a hoot. And we were the first 5 behind the fire engine, and we got a lot of yell-outs, and people enjoyed the cars very much. I was going to add to earlier, Field, you brought up about your father and that email about the other gentleman's father.
Yep.
Some history here is I was part of the 50th celebration of at the time, because they were always changing the last 3 letter designators as we were shrinking the Air Force in my day. I was part of originally the 22nd Military Airlift Squadron, or 22nd MASS. Well, the squadron that flew the hump in the Army became the 22nd MATS in 1947.
Wow. And
that was our squadron. And we did the 50 years back, went to the Smithsonian and also to the archives in D.C., got all the history for the 50-year celebration, and I believe it was either 87 or 88. Don't quote me on that. I think it was 87. And so it went back into the Army Air Corps with all those gentlemen that he spoke about there, flying that hump, and we knew how horrible and how hard that mission was, and especially with the winds. And it was just beautiful. So a lot of history there, and we were the only military airlift squadron within the C-5 fleet of 8 squadrons that also did black ops because of that heritage. And then I was going to also say on your comment about bulldozing the Iraqi troops coming into Kuwait.
Mm-hmm.
I went into Kuwait several times on C-5s, bringing in spec ops and other things to go up and do surveying up into even Baghdad, but we didn't go there. And went through all the oil well fires, et cetera, and the thing that I saw was all the retreating Iraqis that were incinerated, heading north by the same horrible, most evil man on the planet during that time.
Can I name him?
Go for it.
I don't know who you're thinking of, but George H.W. Bush made $1 trillion in the first war, and he did it by trashing the Kuwaiti, I think it's called a diner, D-I-N-A-R. George H.W. Bush actually he lied to his friend Saddam Hussein. He said, I will let you attack Kuwait. And then G.H.W. Bush, like the weasel that he has been always, going back to 1943 or 44, when he had 2 enlisted men behind him in an Avenger. I think it was an Avenger. It was a three crewed Navy bomber, and I have a hard time even being civil when I think about what he did. He knew that as long as he didn't get hit, and he probably stayed out of some of the action so he didn't get hit too bad. Anyway, he knew that they were going on basically a suicide mission, but if he would just retreat from the objective of the military force and go back to a certain coordinate set, that there'd be a U.S. submarine waiting, and if he'd bail out of his 3-crew airplane, they'd pick him up right away. Somebody want to put up a link to this? It's 100% true. Anyway, so he did. His 2 people back here, they have no flight controls. One's a radio operator in the middle and the gunner in the 3rd seat back. He decided, well, it's time to get my evil, Nazi, gay, pedophile ass out of this airplane. I don't want there to be any ambiguity about what I said. Evil, Nazi, gay, pedophile ass out of the airplane. So he bailed out, leaving his 2 supposed crewmates to die in an airplane that's spinning out of control right into the water where they did die. Meanwhile, he hops in the submarine. This reminds me of John McCain's father, who covered up the attack on the USS Liberty by the USS Amberjack, which is the U.S. submarine that torpedoed the Liberty when the Israelis in Egyptian-painted, Israeli-owned, French-built Mirage fighters, they couldn't sink the Liberty. So LBJ, in his evil effort to get America into a second war, LBJ had told the skipper of the USS Amberjack to be at periscope depth and heart of the envelope torpedo range of Liberty. And he says, if Israel can't sink it, and this is a verbatim quote that really, really offends me, since we're doing a spiritual show about God, but just to show how evil LBJ was, he said verbatim, I want that goddamn boat on the bottom. Well, guess what? You're on the bottom now there, LBJ. How do you like it? So anyway, I don't want to rattle on. I want to turn it over to Mark, but everyone in Abel Danger that's a named agent, everyone who's ever attended anything we show up at, you might walk in as a lukewarm combat soldier for Jesus Christ, but you won't walk out that way, I guarantee you. Mark, over to you.
One last comment on Walker Bush, and then we'll finish with that. So, having seen, they call it the Highway of Death, I call it the Highway of Hell. In fact, we would play that song, Highway to Hell, whenever we went up that way. And charred bodies for as far as you could see, tens of thousands, charred vehicles, everything, all heading north. They were heading home, just burned. That smell I still have today in my nostrils. My father was friends with that man. My father's passed, and I don't mind saying this, and he got a picture with him as a chief of police, as a vice president, as president. I knew him quite well. And shortly after George Herbert Walker Bush announced during the first Gulf War, one world order, I get in the mail the picture of my father with him as vice president. You know what I do with that photo field?
What do you do?
Because of where I lived, I couldn't burn it because that's the first thing I wanted to do.
Yep.
The next thing I did was take it to a micro shredder, just it, all by itself, and then I took it out of there, and I put the remnants in a toilet, and I flushed it like it needed to be. And I felt so good.
I have an unusual personality. If it were me, I might have used a micro shredder, put it in the toilet, and then created an underwater statue of Barack Obama, and then send it on a cruise.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, if Barack Obama is offended, why don't you come over here and kiss my rosy red rectum? Because your name's not Obama, it's Barry Swatero, You went to Punahou 79, where I graduated in 67. I was registered as Field McConnell, Christian, U.S. citizen. You, Obama, by the way, my sister gave Obama his passport in 1994, but she's more evil than he is. He's just an adult. He was an actor, and he wasn't very good at it. In fact, George Soros says, of all the people I've hired to do bad things, he's the worst. That's George Soros talking about Obama. Anyway, Obama, before he was Obama, he was Barry Soetoro. Someone in the chat room will put up a image of cement where it says King Obama. And that's at the corner of Punahou Street, 1601 Punahou Street, Honolulu, Hawaii. But his name there was Barry Soetoro, Muslim, Indonesian. And you know, his father may be the Indonesian who looks exactly like him. But his father was not the fat slob from Kenya. His father was not the communist from Chicago, Frank Marshall Davis. His father could have been almost anybody. And I say that because of the morals of the other DNA provider. But Obama probably is going to have a brief stay in Cuba, and then he'll become a swinger. That's my official. Not that I take pleasure in that, but when Obama sent 2,200 U.S. military service personnel to their death in Afghanistan and other places, when you kill 2,200 young enlisted people, Barry Soetoro, your ass is mine. Over to you, Mark.
Well, I love your analogy of the addition to the stuff, the fecal matter maybe being with the stuff that I was watching. Of course, a brown submarine, not the yellow submarine that the Beatles have. Well, you know what? I did think as he was going down about what he did in World War II, and I said, there's a lot of brown submarines down there waiting for you.
Yeah.
But let's get on to some good things.
Yes, absolutely.
And talk about the baptisms, because was that amazing or what?
Yes, and I believe people here are looking at the chat room, but I think in our radio show, Ed, I put a picture of you baptizing your first baptismal recipient, who is a young lady who shall remain nameless, who lives within 100 miles of here. And then after that, we took a 2-hour break for you to dry off, and then we had a lady from this local area, and then a lady that's in the room with us right now, and they all got dunked.
In 45-degree water, by the way.
Okay, what?
In 45-degree water, 7 Celsius for those out of the country.
I'm glad I said what, because I thought I heard you wrong, and I did. But the second time I heard you right. Yes, it was very cool water, but in the chat room, if somebody could please put up, and maybe it's already there, I'm not in the chat room. If somebody could put up the, there it is, King Obama. See, and his name was Barry Soetoro at the time. If somebody could please put up the picture of just the waterfall. Pastor Mark's going to use the towel that's next to him to dry off people at a replica, well as it's going to be very, very, very close. There is an engineer who doesn't know I'm going to use his name, so I won't mention his name, because if I did, Carter Clark of Canton, Texas might be upset. Yeah. So I didn't say Carter Clark, but if I had, Carter Clark is the guy that did Mill Creek Ranch Resort. So would somebody put up the, is it already up? Mill Creek Ranch Resort?
No, the waterfall.
Oh, the waterfall. Well, thank you. Now let's see who I owe this to. I thought so. Gobsmack. It shows up as Lobanks, but see, when people work for Abel Danger, we're shaking like a leaf, and we're afraid the FBI is going to lock us up, so we all change our names. And just so there's no ambiguity, Field McConnell is Agent Chips, and that's spelled FIELD MCCONNELL. And Mark Runyon is Agent Braveheart, and that's spelled MARKRUNYON. So, as long as we're so afraid of SES, Serco, the Soames brothers, the Mendenhall baby techniques, the UK Royals that got kicked out of office on Friday the 13th. Oh yeah, I know, that's right. There must be some gnats here, because I'm having trouble keeping my eyes clear too. But we're gonna Carter Clark, who was the engineer who built Mill Creek Ranch Resort in Canton, Texas. He's also the engineer that put that F4 on the pole. And we're going to go down there and probably on day 3 in the ranch, we'll sit around the conference table with people like Carter Clark, and we'll see how quickly and efficiently and with a great degree of quality, we need to build 5. In fact, if anybody puts up the picture of, I can show you exactly what we're going to build. It's www.millcreekranchresort.com, and there's 75. They call them cabins or lodges, but we're going to put up 5 similar devices. One for the Army, one for the Navy, one for the Marines, one for the Air Force, one for the Coast Guard, and there will be each of the service dwellings will be in honor of an enlisted Medal of Honor recipient. Over to you, Mark.
Well, back to the baptism field.
Yes.
And the nameless agent, we kindly and sincerely called her Esther yesterday. She was being baptized, because she reminded me of the story about Queen Esther for such a time as this. As she came to baptize the first one, she had to have it done early because she had other things to do later in the day. I was getting ready to come over for the baptism, and it was very cloudy, and I said a prayer, if we could have a beautiful day when we get there, it would be wonderful, Lord. Well, lo and behold, just as we got to that place at Plum Creek, at the Plum Creek, the sun came out and the blue sky, and we did the baptism, and I'll tell you what, I could feel the power of God in that water and through the baptism. And as we came up, if you look at the picture of myself with her after her dunk, you'll see the sun just shine on her face. It was so beautiful. And even the second time around, the same thing happened with the other 2. And the power was incredible. I love the fact that it was 3 a significant number, and 3 ladies, considering there were 3 ladies at the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, the 3 Marys. So I think it was all in all God-inspired, God-ordained, and a sign, a symbol of things going forward for not only for Abel Danger and all that we do in helping to bring down evil, but to spread goodness and grace and hope and the future of the ranch #1 down in Athens, Texas. So I see things moving so quickly. I'm expecting today, at the earliest, by Friday at the latest, that we have some kind of announcement of funds. And we're just standing in faith and believing that everything that God has ordained and given us symbols and signs and impressions and visions of, He's going to bring to fruition. As we have seen with having Denise sitting right here, having another agent be rescued from the grips of the corrupt penal system, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to see many, many more miracles. In fact, I believe that young Marine that had the stroke is going to have a type of miracle as well, and will be part of the ranch itself. Over to you, Bill.
Yeah, I want to show you some people that don't quite understand God is active, and it's God doing everything that Abel Danger is being given credit for. I just ask anybody in the chat room to please put up a cabin of one of the 80 cabins. This is incredible. Okay. One of the 80 cabins at Mill Creek Ranch Resort, all of which they're prefabs, they're moved on the site. But in this picture, which is an excellent picture, it is one of the best executive cabins that's available for rent. So that cabin is the exact cabin that Denise and I rented in November of 2016. And we had a small group, and I can remember Agent Telstar from Austin, Texas was there. Agent Crockett from Denver, Colorado was there. Denise and I were there. Agent Ramrod, and then we have a lady, Dangerette, whose name, pardon me, Ramrod's wife. I'm so excited I can't remember your name, but I can see your cowboy boots. That's out of 80 cabins, that's the one Denise and I stayed at.
Yeah.
And there's a water feature. Remember I told you this water feature was built by Carter Clark. Now notice for the record, I did not say Carter Clark.
No, you didn't.
No, I'd never do that because Carter Clark, who also put the F4 up on the pole, he's going to be the engineer, the civil engineer that's given the first chance to bid everything we want to do at the ranch, which if God is doing what we think He's going to do. Are you guys having an emergency?
We're having an issue.
Okay, we're having an issue going here, so I don't know what the issue is, but God does, and He just resolved it. So we're going to have a wonderful ranch. by the way, when I say we are, you're 100% sure, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
I'm 99.9% sure, but I'll say this. The preferred funder is a man in Massachusetts, but we have a secondary funder in Michigan, and we have a tertiary, which means third for those people who think I said a dirty word, tertiary funder who's in Europe right now, but he's from the U.S. And so all of these funders who have offered to buy the ranch in Texas will have assets sufficient to buy a $6 million ranch without breaking a sweat or worrying about their money. And, you know, there's a lot of people who are worried about money, and those people will never have enough. Over to you.
Well, that's just lovely. And, you know, CC, we won't say his name, who's going to build this baptismal, one of the things we've decided would be a nice, easy access ramp going into the water, so anyone in a wheelchair or impaired has a way to get down there along with a pair of stairs, instead of climbing down rocks like we did yesterday with a rail, but sand bottom, so that your feet are in the earth, you're in moving water, and the baptism gives the full effect of what a true natural baptism should be. It's going to be lovely, and just one of many great things that's going to go on the ranch. I think we're going to have leather working, wood making, model airplanes so far, stained glass. We're going to have artisans, along with equine, along with dogs. I mean,
in both cases, therapy, equine therapy drugs. Keep
right.
going.
So it's just going to continue to grow, and more of the contributions are going to come in as far as people, assets, etc., so that we can, and farming, by the way, which is also great for the PTSD and etc., and just see people come back, get their life back, get their value back, and hopefully put behind them the heinous things that come from war, seeing death, the maiming, etc., and give them a fresh start and have a community that is one with each other, sharing and doing, encouraging, lifting up, and we'll be praying together. We'll be doing many different things that'll make this a place that people are going to want to come. And we're going to do things for children as too, of the vets, etc., that will come and stay in those houses. I'm so excited. I believe we're going to do a ring of honor, correct?
Yeah, the 5 dwellings will be in a circle. The flagpole will be illuminated 24/7 at the center of the circle, and there'll be 2, perhaps 3 flags up there: the U.S. flag and the flag of Jesus. And the third flag, you guys can all discuss and figure out what I'm talking about, but I'm not even sure what I'm talking about.
So we'll have the Christian flag.
Yep.
And then and around that we'll have the 5 branches of service.
Yep.
Okay. So this is going to be a place where real healing for American veterans, Allied veterans, and in the future veterans that we were told were our enemies can come and bond and heal and get back on with life, correct?
Yes, and we can tell them who put their lives and their bodies and their spirit and their mental well-being at risk. And it was never the enemy. It was always the arms, military-industrial complex, the global cabal, the Jesuit branch of the Vatican, and I'm not anti-Catholic or anti-Vatican, but the Jesuits I am. They're a bunch of wolves in sheep's clothing, and they are some of the most heinous pedophiles in the world, and they just got their child sacrifice during the vernal equinox shut down by a bunch of Christians. And those people, it's funny that they dress up like priests when actually they are members of the synagogue of Satan. That's only negative. It's also true.
Right.
But we don't care about them. They've been defeated by your God and my God and the God of everybody that was at the plunge. Plum City Plunge, and we may have one next summer. I think we probably will, but I think we'll have to travel to it. And if we do, there's a very good chance we can travel any way we want, but a very comfortable way to travel from Texas to here nonstop is in a, say, a 42 to 43, 45 foot, the longest Class A motorhome, which typically are diesel pushers. And one of the people that wants to fund the ranch, and it's the one that will fund the ranch, I believe. But that party has already told me that that type of a diesel pusher would be handy, and it would. To go to the airport and pick up our guests. Over to you.
Oh, amen. And of course, the Gulfstream times many that we will use to go around, pick up people,
Yep.
and also do transportation needs as we need to for the staff, etc. at the ranch. So it's going to be monumental. What do you think, Phil? Do you think we're ready to wrap this down and pray it out?
Yeah, we're all done here. If anybody has any questions, we'll handle them after we turn the camera off. But I opened with prayer. Are you going to close?
I am. Heavenly Father, all that you're doing here and now, according to your will and your way, to those who yield themselves to you through righteousness and willingness to serve you, to lay our lives down, to be yoked with your Son, to abide in him, that as the vine, he can produce the fruit through us to do good here in the world. For each and every one listening right now, and they're going to listen in the future, join with us in prayer for the ranch. Join with us in prayer to see this evil in this day be illuminated and brought down. Join with us in prayer for the healing of hearts and the mending of minds and the renewing of spirits and for the hope of the future. We are not going to stop. We're going to run our race to win. We're going to hold our heads up high, and we do believe by faith we are going to see victory beyond measure, beyond what we've already seen, and know that our God reigns, and it will be unbelievable. In the precious name that's above every name, I pray this prayer. In Jesus Christ, amen.
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 I got my hat back on, and I'm going to ask somebody in the chat room who's familiar with the drill to please put up. Wait a minute. Should we sing one Christian song
That's what I
before we
was
go?
gonna say. Yeah,
Come on, Phil, you gotta dance.
What do you?
Of course.
Oh, okay. I'll
You
sing
gotta
and dance.
Yeah.
First, would you mind if I play that Johnny Cash song from yesterday?
That'd be great.
Okay, I'm going to sing that, and then if Denise doesn't come back to tell me what to dance to, I'll totally humiliate and embarrass the other people here with me. Oh, Denise says to dance. Oh, well. Okay, Denise, you come back here and tell me what to dance to. But first, we are going to sing a song which, while I'm looking for it, it's by Johnny Cash, and it is the last song he sang on his show, the Johnny Cash Show. The name of the song, and I'm having a real hard time with my fingers. Johnny Cash, He'll Understand and Say Well Done. Maybe somebody will get to it before I do. Done. Okay, and then I'm going to have to put in YouTube. Maybe somebody already beat me, and if you did, I'll find you. But I'm doing it myself, too, and I think I got it. Yep, I got it. Here we go. Now, before I start this song, okay, I already started it. Now I stopped it. I thought I stopped it. The very first stanza to this song is, give when you give him the best of your service, knowing that he was God's only son. Don't be dismayed when men don't believe you. He'll understand and say, well done. Do you remember what you told me about my father's last words?
I don't specifically know where you want me to go. There's
Oh,
several
yeah,
things
I'll
I said.
hit you. On the night before my dad died at 11 p.m., he was sleeping, and he felt extremely uncomfortable, and he woke up and he stirred, and I stirred, and I said, are you feeling all right? And he said, no. He said, yes, I feel fine. Then he said, well, I don't really feel fine. Then he said, I feel bad. Then he said, I really feel bad. And then I said, well, I got all these horse pills. What are your symptoms? Do you have any pain? He had bone cancer. He said, I have no pain. I just really feel unsettled or anxious. So I gave him 2 horse pills, and I washed it down with water. And do you remember roughly what he said to me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, in my words, he said to you how proud he was of you, Phil McConnell.
Yes, and what he said, as far as I recall, and I'm the only guy there besides Jesus and my dad, he said, I'm very proud of you, Phil. And I said, well, in a 59-year life of serial failures, what could you possibly find in my true history to be proud of? And he, verbatim quote, he said, I have every reason on earth to be proud. Then he fell asleep, then he died. And this song reminded Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, so at that point, later that evening, after we discussed that, I heard from the Lord saying, through your Father
Yep,
in
God.
heaven was saying that to you for your answer to his call to expose evil.
I believe you, and God tells me every morning that as of each morning, he is satisfied with my service because he allows me to wake up alive. So with that in mind, remember the first stanza is roughly, give when you give him the best of your service, knowing that this is God's only son. Don't be dismayed or whatever. If men don't understand you, he, God, will understand and say, well done. So I'm going to play that now, and it's going to be pretty loud. I hope someone will sing along, and then if Denise tells me what to dance to, I promise to embarrass everyone. Here it goes.